New at 4.
If she didn't do it, she is definitely involved.
Not guilty. The reason a jury came down with that verdict for Susan Van Note, charged with double murder. And what's next for her?
The crisis here rises above party.
More trouble for the White House. What President Donald Trump has to say about his former national security advisor and what steps lie ahead.
Postpartum depression for men, the number of fathers getting the baby blues, and what can be done about it. KSPR News at 4 starts now.
Keeping you connected. This is KSPR News at 4.
Our top story.
We didn't feel like we did the family justice.
Jurors telling us why a Missouri lawyer is free tonight after being accused of killing her millionaire father and his girlfriend.
We have been covering this case for 7 years now and told you yesterday that jurors found this woman, Susan Van Note, not guilty of the crime. KSPR's Stephanie Garland is live in Sunrise Beach, where Van Note's father and longtime girlfriend lived. Stephanie?
Lee, jurors wanted justice in memory of William Van Note and his longtime girlfriend, Sharon Dixon, who neighbors say were killed right inside this house. But the jury foreman, Mary Heiss, says that there simply wasn't enough evidence to prove Susan Van Note murdered her father and his longtime girlfriend. Now, this juror says that there were a lot of unanswered questions, like what happened to the murder weapon, and there wasn't any DNA evidence nor any fingerprints found linking Van Note to the place where the couple was shot and stabbed. Initially, William Van Note, who was shot in the head, survived the attack, but died when prosecutors say his daughter forged documents to have him taken off life support at a hospital in Columbia.
It was very difficult because we wanted to do our job and we wanted justice, but it's very hard to see someone seemingly go free when we felt like she was guilty.
Now, she says that the jury deliberated for more than 6 hours before deciding that Van Note is not guilty of murdering her father nor his longtime girlfriend. But again, she says just because they decided that she is not guilty doesn't mean she's innocent. We'll explain. That'll be at 6. Lee.
Stephanie, thank you. We tried to ask the Camden County prosecutor if she'll be investigated for forging her father's signature to take him off life support after he was shot. We have yet to hear back. We also reached out to Van Note's attorney to see what is next for her and if she will now inherit her father's millions. We have not heard from him today either.
A man from Willard is dead, shot to death outside a Super 8 motel. It happened yesterday morning in North Little Rock. Investigators are talking to people who may have seen the shooting, but so far have made no arrests.
Now, KSPR early warning weather.
Temperatures back on the rise today, above average. Still not to the level that we're going to see over the next few days, but we'll take that 50-degree temperature reading. 51 in West Plains, 50 Lake of the Ozark. Sunshine back today. That's why it feels remarkably warmer today with the sun that has come back out. If you're heading out about tonight, after that sun sets, those temperatures will quickly fall off down to the mid-30s. We're looking good, but tomorrow we increase the fire weather risk. We'll talk about what conditions will be present that has this fire weather watch in effect coming up here in just a little bit. Lee?
Thanks, Kevin. A wrongful death lawsuit against the University of Missouri is not wrapped up just yet. The case stems from the death of Columbia firefighter Bruce Britt. He died in 2014 when a walkway collapsed at apartments owned by the university. A settlement in the case was canceled yesterday after the city filed a late motion and the university requested a new judge.
Arkansas is the latest state to consider a so-called bathroom bill. A draft of the bill was filed yesterday by Republican senators. It concerns gender identity and bathroom privileges. North Carolina made headlines for its own bathroom bill, which required that people only use bathrooms that match their gender at birth. Supporters say it's a safety issue. Critics say it's discriminatory and would do serious harm to Arkansas's tourism industry.
We've seen the damage that so-called bathroom bills have done in other states.
Women and girls ought to feel safe when they go into the restroom.
Bill may face an uphill battle with the state's governor. Governor Asa Hutchinson says if this bill is anything like that in North Carolina, he considers it to be unnecessary and potentially harmful.
Missouri prisons don't have to reveal the source of drugs used to execute inmates. The Missouri Appellate Court made that ruling yesterday. It overturns a 2016 trial court ruling that the state wrongly withheld documents that would identify pharmaceutical suppliers. Missouri has declined for years to say where it gets its drugs, citing an exemption to the state's open records law. The lawsuit was filed in 2014 by the Associated Press, as well as major Missouri newspapers.
New at 4, a law that could prevent teenagers caught in prostitution rings from facing charges. KSPR's Matt Berman is live in our newsroom with the reason behind this legislation. Matt?
Well, Jerry, this is Senate Bill 341, introduced by a state senator from St. Louis. The goal, she says, is to take aim at child sex trafficking in Missouri. If passed, anyone younger than 18 would not be charged with prostitution, and anyone soliciting that prostitution could face a felony.
I wasn't seeing a dollar, a dime, a penny out of anything. I would be lucky to be able to eat once a day.
It started by attending a neighborhood party as a teen.
I don't know if it was someone at that home who took us.
A woman whose identity we're protecting tells KSPR she was taken from the Ozarks as a teen as part of a sex trafficking operation to Mexico.
At one point, we were padlocked in a basement with no light, and these girls were chained to the wall, and I was in the middle of them, feeding them.
She was able to run away and says she soon found herself at the border.
I was close enough to the border to get to the border, and my mother sent documents down there, and I was crossed back over.
The average age of children sold into sex trafficking and being prostituted is 11 to 14. So this is a very, very serious problem that we're having, not just in the state of Missouri, but throughout this country.
State Senator Jamila Nasheed of St. Louis tells KSPR one way to fight child sex trafficking is to start with targeting underage prostitution.
Yeah, why should they be penalized for being caught up in a sex trafficking ring or being prostituted?
Senator Nasheed wants to increase the penalties on those soliciting teens. Right now, offenders can face a misdemeanor charge.
What we're looking to do is say, no, that's not good enough. We want to increase this to a e-felon.
I don't have a problem with raising the statute on that.
State Representative Steve Helms of Springfield says his only concern is that the bill doesn't allow prosecution of anyone else who could be connected with sex trafficking.
We need to do what we can to protect any child, anybody, regardless of their age.
The woman we spoke with said she supports Nasheed's bill.
That's amazing, helping save some of the minors that are going through this from something worse.
Now, as for what's next with this bill, it's already had its first reading in the state Senate, and it's in committee right now. Senator Nasheed tells me it could come to the Senate floor again next week. Jerry?
We will be keeping an eye on it. Thank you, Matt Berman, for us. The bill under consideration would change the law so anyone caught soliciting a prostitute younger than 18 would have to register as a sex offender.
A Missouri man is facing murder charges for a burglary gone wrong. Darren Williams is charged with second-degree murder, burglary, and misdemeanor assault. Police say Williams and Donald Marks forced their way into a St. Louis area apartment and attacked two people. The male homeowner shot and killed Marks. No charges are being filed against the homeowner, but Williams is charged under a law that makes it murder if someone else dies while committing a felony.
Springfield agencies are working on a plan of action to end homelessness. Numbers indicate that more than 100 children and at least 165 adults are homeless in the city. And the Kitchen says that's only a snapshot of the problem. He believes the correct number may be closer to 300 homeless adults.
And the things that happen on the street, especially to youth, are just terrible. And to think that there's anybody in our community that has to experience those kinds of things because we haven't built a system yet that can end homelessness is kind of sad on our part.
In the coming weeks, a team of researchers will divide the numbers into individual breakouts by population. Once the organizations know how many are veterans, disabled, face chronic homelessness, and other key breakdowns, they'll be able to better design programs to fit the needs of the homeless.
If you live in Arkansas, you may soon get to make a decision on whether to limit the amount of money people can win in court cases. Arkansas Senate Committee has advanced a proposed constitutional amendment. It would ask voters to limit attorneys' fees and damages. Resolution sponsor, Republican Senator Missy Irvin of Mountain View, says the measure would reduce the number of lawsuits against health care providers. If it continues to move forward, Voters would consider it next year.
Some say they can't find a job, but businesses say they can't find workers. KSPR's Sheena Elzy shows you what researchers say is behind this problem and where those jobs are.
It was big news in 2010.
We plan to add up to 500 new jobs in Springfield within the next year.
But fast forward 7 years.
I think people forget that we're here.
Expedia is having a hard time getting qualified workers to find them, despite its growth.
Experience is one of the things that we're struggling to find, and that's definitely something we're looking for.
And that's part of the reason Meg Compte, one of the company's recruiters, came here.
We're really just looking for a way to partner with other local businesses to really get our name out there, find out what other companies are doing.
The Missouri Job Center released the results of a survey here that showed, just like Expedia, the Springfield job market is growing. But companies are struggling to find qualified workers. 90% of companies, according to the survey. Researchers behind the survey say they found the problem goes back to education.
There's still a significant gap in the skill sets that the worker brings to the workforce.
That's why she says one of the things they're doing is working with schools to find more ways to prepare future workers.
I think the next step is we're really going to have to amp up in terms of how we work with our partners and really bridge that education and workforce gap.
Researchers say this is the third year that they've done this study and plan to continue to keep it going to improve jobs in our area. In Springfield, Sheena Elzy, KSPR News.
Thank you, Sheena. According to the survey, healthcare is where there is the most need for qualified workers.
Traffic alert for you now. MoDOT says drivers who travel through this area of Chestnut and Bellcrest near the Chestnut Railroad Bridge project are not following the traffic signs, and that is making things dangerous.
We do see a little issue with people not following the posted signs, with traffic not following the rules and making that turn there at Bellcrest. We just ask people to follow the signs. You know, it is causing a little bit of an issue with that morning commute.
Before construction there started, there was a left turn lane for drivers to head south on Bellcrest, but when crews had to narrow Chestnut down to start the work, that turn lane was eliminated. MoDOT says everyone needs to follow the signs or find another way around this to keep traffic flowing smoothly.
A Springfield man will serve on the University of Missouri's Board of Curators. Jeff Lehman is one of 3 people appointed by Governor Eric Greitens. Lehman received a degree from Missouri State University. He's also served as a trustee at Ozarks Technical Community College.
Springfield chapter of the NAACP is now responding to that controversial moment captured on camera in Jefferson City.
We don't listen to students when they complain that they're being mistreated, called names, and then nothing's done about it.
Thank you for your testimony, sir. Next witness.
We had 5 minutes for each witness. This man has not
We do. I asked the man to speak on the subject. He's not speaking on the subject, Representative.
I am speaking on the subject.
Video shows NAACP President Rod Chappell's mic being cut off as he spoke about the racial consequences of a bill. The Springfield NAACP has released a statement. It reads in part, "We find this treatment of Mr. Chappell disrespectful and an affront to the democratic process. We of the Springfield NAACP branch support Mr. Chappell and also find the bill to strip away civil rights of our vulnerable and historically discriminated against populations."
Fast food CEO Andrew Puzder is withdrawing as President Donald Trump's labor secretary nominee. This as Democrats point fingers at Puzder's own business practices, including those well-known Hardee's ads.
Mr. Puzder's well-known ads for CKE restaurants are disgusting and they are degrading. But his defense of those ads is even worse. He said those ads reflect his personality and that they are, quote, at the core of what his company believes.
Republicans say they're also concerned about Puzder's failure to pay taxes for 5 years on a former housekeeper who was not authorized to work in the United States.
Making news today, President Trump lashing out about a bombshell report.
Michael Flynn, General Flynn, is a wonderful man. I think he's been treated very, very unfairly by the media. As I call it, the fake media in many cases.
The report found that members of the Trump campaign had repeated contact with Russian intelligence before the election. ABC's Kenneth Moten explains what might be next in the investigation.
President Trump on the defense at the White House. The New York Times reports that people inside and outside his campaign had repeated contacts with Russian intelligence officials in the year before the election.
People are trying to cover up for a terrible loss that the Democrats had under Hillary Clinton.
The Times report did not say the Trump associates knew they were talking to Russian intelligence officers, and the paper reported U.S. officials haven't seen any evidence that the Trump team cooperated with Russia in the hack of the Democrats or had anything to do with it. The White House has denied any contact with Russian officials during the campaign. On X, National Security Advisor Michael Flynn, who discussed sanctions with the Russian ambassador in December, the White House said Flynn resigned because of an erosion of trust. But one day later, the president defended Flynn.
I think it's very, very unfair what's happened to General Flynn, the way he was treated, and the documents and papers that were illegally, I stress that, illegally leaked.
Lawmakers on both sides calling for a bipartisan congressional investigation.
An independent outside commission, nonpartisan commission outside with subpoena power to find the truth.
If there's contacts between the Trump campaign and Russian intelligence officials outside the norm, that's not only big league bad, that's a game changer.
As outrage grows on Capitol Hill, congressional Republicans and Democrats have introduced a bill that would make it tougher for President Trump to pull back sanctions against Russia. Kenneth Moton, ABC News, Washington.
During a news conference with Israel's prime minister, President Trump said that he is also encouraging a peace agreement between that country and the Palestinians. Men are getting the baby blues. Up next on KSPR News at 4, the number of them battling depression after a new baby and what can be done about it.
Temperatures closer to where we should be for the middle of February. With readings here in the upper 40s, low 50s right now, but this is only the beginning of what will be a very warm stretch of days ahead. Things look pretty good out there this evening. Evening rush, no problems, but the sunshine, we're all green. We'll talk about how tomorrow will be a little bit of an issue with the winds coming up here in just a little bit.